Hi, good afternoon. My name is Chris Brown, CEO of ClosePoint USA. And today we're doing another episode of ClosePoint Cafe. And I'm very lucky to have with me today two incredible individuals that are running their own teams within the EXP framework, who've been around the real estate game for a pretty good long time and have developed their own sense of culture within their own teams. Today we have with us Mr. Scott Zielinski and Mr. Omar. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Good, good. So today I wanted to get into what got you guys going. What led you down the path to being who you are today? Let's just start with, Scott, and what was your family like? What it was growing up being, and how did that relate and bring you to where you are now?
My family is very diversified. I come from a mixed family of divorce and remarriages and stepbrothers and half-brothers and a full brother. So we're all extremely different. So we each have our unique way of living, the way we work, our work ethic, what we do for a living, where we went to college. So it's a lot of different experiences came together for us to kind of build who we are individually, because we are so different. You have a lot of families, the kids are exactly the same sports, same everything. One works in international finance, one works in doing studies on monkeypox and different things like that. One's a surfer and fireman, one was in the Navy, so and our father was in the state police, so little structured background, also at the same time coming from a divorced family, not so structured at the same time when you want it to be. So I just learned at a young age to work hard. I mean, I started working when I picked blueberries for like 3 days in Tabernacle.
Did you really?
Hated it.
I was on a blueberry farm too in Hamilton, yeah.
Like, I don't know, 7th or 8th grade, and I said, I don't want to do this, and I went to Wildwood and worked on the boardwalk literally starting in 8th grade, and so I've always had one job, if not two jobs, and in the real estate world, you have to have that work ethic, because if you don't, you're just not going to be as successful as you want to be. So I think it definitely formed me. Again, just work my whole life,
So it sounds like your family's built in a lot of service to community. Mm-hmm. I mean, doing research on monkeypox, that's saving lives. That's literally saving lives. And your father being a state trooper, your brother a fireman.
Yep. Another one in the Navy.
Yeah. Robert, yeah.
So
it's really awesome. Omar, how about you?
So, normally I save this for my therapist, but so my situation was it was unique to say the least. So I'm a first-generation immigrant. My parents and my older sister moved here from Uganda in Central Africa. They were fleeing like a war-torn country. There was like massive genocide that was going on. They were given 3 days to leave with just like the clothes on their back and maybe a couple dollars to their name, and had to get out or be killed. So they opted to get out. Obviously they got out because I'm here to tell the story. So as a first-generation immigrant, like one of the unique things is that people that move here from another country typically want to hold on to their culture. It's a big thing, when immigrants come over, there tend to be like pockets of them, and that's still seen to this day.
Sure.
Now, me being the first American-born person in my family, and I lived in a predominantly like Caucasian area, like I stuck out like a sore thumb. And that unfortunately, growing up, I was born in the mid-'70s, there was a lot more racism, very like open, blatant at that time. So as a 5-year-old going into the school systems, I did everything to integrate. Like I spoke perfect. Now, my parents spoke broken English too, so I was completely on my own to...
So at that young age, sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
You recognized that you needed to assimilate into what?
Correct.
Because it made you feel that you were more American, more accepted?
I was trying to have less of a target on me, because the second I walked in, being the only brown kid there, I already had a target before I even had a chance to open my mouth. So wow. That, that at a very early age taught me to like blend in and kind of like fly under the radar, to not draw any like negative or unwanted attention to myself. Now, when I went home, okay, perfect English speaking, like all like as Americanized as could be, they hated me at home for it. So that created like a lot of like deep-rooted trauma from I can't go home and be myself, and I can't be myself out in public. It's like I was, I guess that's probably like one of the truer definitions of like a Sigma, that it's like I had to survive on my own in either situation. So fast forward, my parents didn't have a lot of money. My father was a mechanic, my mom was a seamstress, so they were both, hardworking people. They were thankless jobs. They didn't make like a ton of money. So with that, there was a lot less things that I had as a younger person. But the other thing was, because they're so old school, I just remember at 5 years old, I'm mowing the grass at 5 years old. Now, not a riding mower, it's a push mower, and we have like 4 or 5 foot hills in the front of the house. And to this day, I still have like nightmares of like getting screamed at, taking a push mower over these like giant hills, and my parents yelling at me because like I shaved the top of these hills here. So that taught me to have pride in my work, because there's a certain product, like learning expectations. On top of that, because sometimes there were days where like we didn't eat, so I would then take that lawnmower and I'd knock on the neighbors' doors. I'd pull a wagon with like a shovel or a rake, depending upon what time of year it was, and knock like, hey, do you need anything done around the house? So circling back to your original question, like at this point, I've now been prepped for working in tough conditions, adapting, selling myself, okay, door knocking, cold calling, all these things that like were setting me up for like a much later career in real estate. But yeah, so from like a work ethic aspect, that's kind of where all that came from. And another thing that I think I attribute back to some of these like childhood situations is knowing how I felt on the inside, I think gave me like a deep level of like compassion and understanding to know what like other people may be going through. And like you look at them, you see them smiling, and like you have no idea like what's actually behind that smile.
Wow, that's a great story. So both of your cultures are deep rooted in grinding it out.
Yeah.
Learning how to deal with the grind, adversity, and overcoming it. And being able to be built on, listen, it's tough. I know it's going to be tough, but I've done something tougher growing up, and I'm going to get through this just fine.
You make a great point there. I say this to anybody that I talk to, is that the things that I had to overcome as a child, nothing as an adult with like the experience and the resources and just the like just who I am as an adult versus like 5-year-old me. There's nothing I've experienced as an adult that can touch the difficulty and the severity of like some of the things that I had to overcome. Is like kind of like a helpless kid at 5 years old. So when people ask like, oh, how do you just sit down and just work like that? I'm like, this is easy. Like in contrast.
Sure. So that's your early years. Scott, you went to the University of South Carolina?
I was down in North Carolina at a private school, yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about you being down there away from your family and what you had to overcome.
So, going through a divorce, you learn to adapt to having separate lives almost, with my dad being up in the Medford area, my mom being in Cape May, friends in both places. So when I went to college, I think adapting to being away wasn't that tough for me, because I moved after 8th grade for high school. So I moved at an age that honestly was extremely tough to integrate with people. Like you talk about based on your race, mine was more, I moved to somewhere where everybody already had their cliques. And you get into high school, and you would think kids in high school are still open. It was really tough for me going in freshman year to like become friends and have friends, and I made them, don't get me wrong, because I'm pretty outgoing and I can find groups to hang out with, but there are definitely groups of people that made it very tough to integrate with, become friends with, just because I didn't go to elementary school with them in middle school. So I learned the hard way in high school, I would say. College was like a breeze to me, because...
And where did you go to college?
Private school called Barton College.
Oh yeah, Barton.
Yeah, and then took classes at NC State as well at the same time. So did a little bit of both, yeah.
Gotcha.
So when you go to college, it's different because everybody's in the same boat for the most part. I mean, there were definitely a lot of kids that were from North Carolina there, so they kind of had that connection, but everybody's new. You're meeting everybody for the first time, so everybody's more open to becoming friends, making friends, and then figuring out what groups they want to hang out with. So I would say high school was my harder years out of all of it combined. And then my best friends, besides from Medford Lakes, are from college. I mean, one of them from North Carolina, you've met, Amit, lives here in Marlton, and we see each other all
And
the
also
time.
met your buddy who also does the
Steven.
drop shipping. Yep.
On Amazon,
On Amazon,
so-
who's a huge success. And those are your core guys, right? Those are your buddies that you went through the college years with.
Yeah, there's about 6 or 7 of
because
us
you guys
that see
go
each
away
other.
a lot together, right?
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so
That's it.
we got very lucky with that. Like we really did. We talk about it all the time because we have friends that barely talk to our college friends or talk to 1 or 2 of them. We have, I would say, about 8 or 9 of us that are really close. So, and Steven helped me get my first job out of college in financing in the mortgage world, and we can talk about that later. That's kind of how I led into this. But yeah, it just goes to show that your friends, my Medford Lakes friends, I'm still super tight with since we were 4.5 years old, and then kind of skipped my high school friends, and now my college friends are who we're really tight with. So
It's a great story. It really is, because it demonstrates adversity, keep grinding, finding your way with the people that you want to associate with that are all successful, and then it brings you to where you are, in part, to where you are today. Omar, talk about high school for you, and then college, and all the things thereafter.
So in high school, like I was heavily into music, and I just recently got back into music again.
That's right.
So yeah, I was like a drummer in like a few like metal bands that some people find that hard to believe, but that was I had long hair, everything was pierced.
Is that right?
Yeah,
I can't imagine with long hair.
I at one point
I've only known you with the the tight,
the high and the tight. Yeah. People think I'm a cop, but no, no. I had like hair literally down to my ass. I had like a long mohawk at one point. Like I went through a variety of phases, and most of them were like that was just typical of being in that scene. And high school, a lot of my friends were also musicians, so we were kind of just all like a creative bunch. Yeah, we would rotate between different bands, and we would like be out like playing shows. And I've played like bars, clubs, and even outside of high school, like smaller arenas. And it's just it was a huge passion of mine. It never really got into sports through high school because like I was kind of emaciated through those years, so I was almost like afraid of playing sports and getting hurt. But music was really like my passion through that.
Nice.
And so through that, I went to college for a short time. I never actually finished. I was in for electrical engineering, and when I was in, I'm like, this just isn't me. So I dropped out, and I just worked like a variety of like odd jobs. I always had like multiple jobs at one time because I knew I hadn't found my way yet, but I also knew that I wasn't moving back in with my parents, and I wasn't going to live below a certain standard either. So it was just, again, going back to I'm going to do whatever it takes to have the life that I want to maintain. If it meant working multiple jobs, then so be it. It's like I could have been like a cashier, but then I'm installing high-end car stereos. I worked for entertainment companies. I've been a DJ in both clubs and for like catered events. I did a brief stint as an entertainer a little bit later in life.
Okay.
We'll get to that later because that's further down in the timeline. But
an entertainer.
But ultimately, where I landed was if I could say like what my longest career path was prior to real estate. I got into fitness and a personal trainer. As a young kid, I always like felt like weak and like I wasn't really, not that it was unhealthy, but I was frail is probably the best way to put it. And I think through fitness, that it was both physical and spiritual of being able to walk a certain path and make changes both physically and emotionally, and then also be able to take that and share that with others because I got really good at it. Like I made a lot more money than most people in that industry did because like I got really good at guiding and coaching others in that as well.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then so much to the point where, segueing into, going up to like my real estate start of that career, I had hit a ceiling in that industry and like the economy, this was like around like 2015, it was getting a little harder because people weren't really spending money on that like some people considered it a luxury, but I niched down in people that like needed it, people that were like morbidly obese, and I worked a lot with people that had neurological disorders. I actually was part of programs for people that were in addiction treatment because their like fitness and just exercise was like a big part of sobriety. Other people like that had like joint replacements, heart replacement, all like the special needs type stuff where those were people that had to do it. So I was more on the medical side of things. but again, hit a ceiling, and that is ultimately what led me to start considering real estate. I had one of my in-laws at the time was a very successful realtor at this time and had been in my ear for a long time. And then finally, I just hit a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm at a point where there's no more growth here, and I need something different to now remove the ceiling that my head was bashed against.
Sure. So before we get into the real estate stuff, you're a father. Congratulations. That's recent, right?
Yes.
Tell me about your son.
He's great. Grayson Scott. He's around 12 weeks old now, 11, 12 weeks old. Sleeps through the night, so everybody keeps asking me, are you sleeping through the night? I say yes, and they're shocked at it. So
Did you panic the first time you slept through the night?
I actually didn't, because I slept through him getting up every night anyway. So, and Katie was getting upset because...
And Katie's your wife.
Yes, she's my wife. We waited, we got married, we traveled, we kind of did what we wanted to. Also had to find my way, kind of like Omar with getting into real estate, find my way to where I was comfortable financially and happy with what I was doing, because I was in the hospitality business, kind of hit a ceiling, same type of story as Omar. And you know, I just got married and I was like, I love what I did, don't get me wrong, but I was like, financially, I can't go any further. I just got married. We're going to live in my condo for 25 more years. If we want to do more things, what can I do to excel that? And with having a background in mortgages, I was like, oh, I'm going to go into real estate. Katie looked at me like, you're absolutely crazy. I have no idea why you're doing this, but I'll support you. And it kind of went from there. So
that's huge. Those words are incredibly huge. And I just had a conversation this morning with the CEO of a mortgage company, and we were just shooting the shit. And he flat out told me, he goes, my success has been always predicated on the strength of my family and my wife supporting what I'm doing and understanding the long hours. And you nailed it on that. You nailed it by saying that. I'm sorry to interrupt. But,
no, don't get me wrong. She thought I was crazy.
She thought you were crazy, but at the end of it,
I never really talked about it.
But she also figured out, this is my husband. This is what he wants to do. My job is to support him into becoming successful.
And she didn't know me when I did mortgages. So for her to understand that I understood real estate was, she had no idea.
Almost like foreign to her.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, my husband's been a chef. He's worked for food servicing companies. Like, he doesn't really know about real estate. What does he know? But yet I had written mortgages for 8 years right out of college.
And you know appraisals, you know the DTI income,
I know
all the requirements that put a deal together.
Which definitely helps me on the real estate side.
So what year was that? How long ago was that? When you came over as, this is what I do, I'm a realtor.
We got married in 15, so in 16 I made that decision and got my license. I made the decision in November of 16, had my license by April of 17, I think it was, or no. Sorry, it was 15, then 16 I got my license. Worked both jobs about 110 hours a week for like 9 months.
There you go. Grinding.
Yeah, I had my breakdown in October. I did have one at a dinner one night where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But I kept grinding until about March, and then she came home one day and I said, hey, that conversation we've been having, it's right now, I can't do it anymore. I mean, think about 115 hours a week minimum.
I get it.
For 9 months. As strong as I am, I was just done. So she said, I trust you, do what you want to do. Because we kind of had goals on what we wanted to have saved to make the switch.
Doing smart planning.
Yeah, we weren't quite there yet, but she saw where I was going with it and said, okay, if you want to, I'll trust you. And next day, walked in and gave my notice. And I stayed for 30 more days at that job. I gave them enough leeway. But yeah, made the change and haven't looked back since. So that was 2017.
And that's when you cut it off.
Full 100%.
On your own, this is what I'm doing.
That's
awesome.
funny. Is I remember that exact point in my transition.
Because you guys are around the same time.
Yeah, we got licensed right around the same time.
Right around the same time. Because that's why I wanted you
2016.
together, because a lot of your story is paralleled in what
Absolutely.
you do. And you guys are friends.
Yes.
How we got here is different, but the fact that we're kind of, I'm not going to say even because I don't want to go there, but we're kind of like at the same level and building the team at the same time and
But you have
everything
your own
like
flavor
that.
of how you do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's awesome.
One's chocolate and one's vanilla. And I guess that makes you strawberry.
All red. But what's funny is, and I go back to the strength of family. I've met your wife, who I love. I've met your wife, who I love. They're so wholesome, nice, strong people.
They're strong women.
They're strong women.
And it takes a strong one to deal with them.
Well, especially, I know me and probably you too. Yeah.
I mean, that's why our wives do get along. But I look at them, they're number one, great moms. Okay. Excellent support system. Their fallback. And great wives. I mean, they're dedicated to the family. And again, going back to my previous statement, we cannot be successful, any professional, without a strong family background, a strong family behind you. And it's just been time and time again, I see that example, and listening to a bunch of these interviews, that's what it came down to. How strong is their family and supporting them what they want to do, so. But Omar, going back to you, you jump out of being the fitness guru, you jump into a team, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I started on the team.
And those guys were that team was banging. I mean,
yes, there was high volume coming out.
Hundreds of deals in 1 year. I think 700 deals in 1 year that you were a part of.
Right.
You learned, though, the business from the REO side of things.
REO is like distressed properties, bank-owned properties. They're typically dilapidated properties. Yeah. Now, I had no training on this team, but what I did have was opportunity in the way of leads. And the quality was all over the place. But to me, I treated every lead like it was like a gold brick. So much that I think in my first 6 months, I closed 40 transaction sides, which I didn't know if that was good or bad. That was just what I did.
Let me just tell you, Mike, that's very good, as you know now.
So I'll never forget the very first showing that I went. I remember the day crystal clear. I'm like, oh, what am I going to wear? And then I was like overthinking everything. I want to make sure everything was just perfect and just right. And I show up to the house not understanding what a distressed property is. And it's like, there's holes in the wall, there's like crap on the floor. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I
watched on TV?
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't.
Were there stars on the ceiling?
there were. 1,000% there were. And then I remember it was like this young couple, and they're like, oh, well, this is what we're going to do here, and this is what we're going to repaint this. And that like really opened my eyes, and like I had such a strong connection from that very first showing that I did, that these people that taught me like how to have vision in a lot of different things, not just in like houses, but I mean, this applies to like life. So that I quickly realized, I'm like, you know what, I really like this, because now not only am I, putting people into their homes, but like being a part of like the dreaming and the designing. It's like, it was such like a happy thing. And to this day, I still am very immersed in the distressed property market, and I love taking homeowners through. And I work with a lot of investors as well, which goes with the territory, but like my favorites are the homeowners and like giving them design guidance and lining them up with contractors and helping them actually design the houses. It's like, that gives me like a similar like feel good kind of feeling like the personal training did, just being a part of like such a happy, because that's like where they're going to have like the majority of their memories in their life.
Their holiday memories and birthdays and different things like that.
Births and deaths.
Yeah. So that early situation definitely tuned me into how emotional real estate is for actual homeowners, buying and selling.
That's awesome.
On the selling side, you get people that are, senior citizens and, maybe widowed, and now they got to downsize. And that just really put me in tune with like the emotional component of people buying and selling the houses. And even watching how like, grown adult men I've seen reduced to tears at the table, like, because they're walking away from a place that their entire life happened. And it's like, there's like some ego being, put into check there. But it's given me just such a great appreciation for the roles that sometimes we don't realize that we have in people's lives in doing this. But, that's a piece that I've always been very tied into, no matter which end of the transaction it is.
That's awesome. And that's so true, because as a title company, you're a part of something and putting something together that isn't just numbers, and it's not just a house. It's people's lives. Mm-hmm. And once I have adopted, as I got older and more seasoned, and adopted that frame of mind, we became more successful because we were more in tune to the stress and the anguish and all the things that go into the emotions of buying a house.
Right.
As a company, that's what we are very much in tune to.
Yeah, you're not just punching a ticket.
You're not
and
just
making
punching a
commission.
ticket. Yeah, it's not a
Right.
widget that we're doing.
Right.
We're dealing with somebody focused on, okay, is the house systems good and all that kind of good stuff. But am I getting my kid into the school in time?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a big deal. Am I close enough to my job? If I lose my job, am I still close enough to an industry where all these thoughts and emotions run into people's lives, and we get to be a part of it. And my only small part of it, I just want to make it stress-free for these guys. For the buyer and the seller. I don't want them having to worry that their documents weren't recorded or we missed a mortgage or something like that. And God forbid that does happen, there's insurance in place to protect them. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with heavy emotions in buying a house. Scott, with you, when you were your own agent, very successful, early on, what do you contribute that, as far as how you became out of nowhere in 2017, and you started banging away deals too. Omar, 40 plus transactions his first year. You were up there too.
Yeah, so when I made the decision to do this, even though, quote unquote, if you want to call it part-time, even though I was doing it 50 hours a week or whatnot, there was no option. Like, I wasn't feet first. I was head first in. The whole idea was to transition to full-time. So my first May to October, I think I did like 27 transactions.
That's insane.
Right off the bat. And
That's
it was,
insane.
Yeah, and it was all, so I was on my own, obviously. I was at a RE/MAX office. It was all social media driven.
Really?
Yep. I got one referral from my broker at the time, and that was it. Never another thing. Everything else was, I did it off of social media.
So let's jump into that then. Yep. And Omar, you're huge into social media.
He blows my stuff out of the water.
It's so funny. I just watch it for entertainment factor, and the faces that you make. I still have some in my head, and I just crack up. But what worked social media wise? What can you tell new agents and how to utilize social media that worked for you as a first year agent doing 27 transactions?
So I obviously was on Facebook. I don't even think at that point I was on Instagram. So I started an Instagram page because everybody's like, you have to be on it. I just made sure, like, I posted multiple times a day. It was, so I should say social media and open houses. Let me rephrase that. I did both. If I went to show a house and saw something cool that was old, like the old pencil sharpeners, or like I would see a TV, the old school TV with the boxes on the back, and put a post and say, who knows what the box is on the back of a TV? Like, just different things to engage people besides just being like, showing this house. But then I showed one really sticks out, a gated community in Cinnaminson. So I did a video of the gate opening up to go in and pretty much said, hey, who's looking to be in a gated community in Cinnaminson? I ended up getting 2 leads out of it. Like, just things to engage people besides just always saying, look at this house, I sold this, I bought this house, I did this house.
Instead of the rah-rah stuff, you were giving them visions.
Yeah, just puffing your chest. And
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, instead of doing that, just anything, right?
Yeah.
To engage people is what it's about at the end of the day.
By the way, when you said the pencil sharpener, it brought me back to Catholic school. Like second and third grade.
I still have one in my house.
It's like,
I have one in my garage.
I wonder if anybody
so do I.
who's watching this saw the actual pencil sharpener that we're talking about with the hand crank.
Is yours
If they
right
know what we're
outside
talking
the garage
about.
door?
It is.
Yeah, that's
it's
exactly,
right outside my
that's where you
garage
put
door.
it. Because you don't want
You
to
got a
go
picture?
in.
You know what? Take a picture of it and post it on social.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I would love that.
Because you don't want to go in the garage. You just open the door, you lean out.
And do that. And then if shavings fall in there in your garage and not in your house, right? That's why you did it. But
There you go. I just remember that in second Miss Claypack's class. And it was, mounted on, like, right by the chalkboard. And you slide it in there.
you had to walk up in front of everybody.
Everybody's right.
So they knew
And
you
it
were
disrupted the whole class.
That's right, yep. But yes, I would just do things like that. Like, one of the funniest ones I've seen, and we actually did it. It was a empty house. Well, it wasn't empty. Nobody was living there. I think it was an estate sale. The primary bedroom had the bed facing into the bathroom, which was wide open. A jetted tub was raised, and then the toilet was raised above that. So my client literally sat on the toilet, obviously with the lid shut, I hope. I sat on the bed with my feet down and was like, I did a funny post, like, who wants to watch their significant other go to the bathroom while you're trying to go to sleep? And like, it got a ton of engagement. So just funny things besides always work, right?
The funny is important.
It is. You have to throw other stuff out there, which Omar blows me away at. I have to get more like him and creative with the dad jokes and everything.
The one thing with Omar, and I think I've told you this, when you're laying down with your hand on your and you turn on the stove and the flame comes up.
That was like the seductive house tours.
The seductive house tours.
So that stuff happens completely by accident.
How many views did you get on that thing? By
a lot. And my phone rang because of that.
I can't see why not. You got to do more.
Oh, and we are. So the seductive house tour, the way that happened was we went to go shoot like a traditional video tour, and I just had Genuine, my pony, stuck in my head for some reason. It's
my pony?
Yeah. So we get there, and it's me and Tom, who's been one of the agents on my team, has been with me the longest. I get there, I'm like, you know what? I had a completely different idea. We're going to shoot everything in slow motion. We're going to pull the color out of it, and it's like there's going to be all sorts of filming errors deliberately. So like in the opening scene, it's like, all right, I'm going to walk up to the front door, and when I go to walk in, on the other side of the door is me, which makes no
sense at all.
No sense whatsoever. So we purposely put like a bunch of things that should make your brain kind of hurt.
Like, where's he going with this?
Exactly. And then it's like every time you turn a corner and someone's just randomly there, and we're just like inviting you deeper into the house. And it was completely, we didn't plan on doing it that day, but it was like, I don't know if it's like Tourette's or something. I mean, it's like, I get these ideas and it just, I can't rest until it comes out. And so when we did the stove scene, that was Tom's idea, because initially you see me where I'm just sitting there staring at it and like the flame turns on. And I said, you know what would be even funnier is like now if you're on the other side of it and you blow it back out. And it's like, he fought me on doing that. I'm like, dude, like, trust me, you got to do it. And that was
Tom,
literally...
it was great.
Oh, yeah.
Don't argue that. It was funny as hell. It was a good skit.
And, but yeah, so sometimes it's just like, sometimes you got to let that inner child out, because I think as a kid I spent too much time trying to be an adult. So it's like now, and anybody who knows me, it's like I probably... I'm a little too unserious with certain things, but it's like it's how I get through the serious stuff.
God.
It's just I gotta laugh about it. It's probably a self-defense mechanism.
I found it incredibly funny whenever you guys are on group text, and I'm just holding my breath because I know some zinger, some sarcastic, funny ass comment is going to be coming out from either one of you. And there's a couple of Jeff Hickman. We'll give Jeff a shout. Or Jeff Hickman.
Put us in a room together and it can get bad.
Oh, it gets funny. And we've had those dinners. It's a good time.
Oh, yeah.
So now let's get into, you talked about Tom on your team. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about your teams. Scott, start with you. What's the culture? What's the idea? What do you bring to the table to somebody who wants to join a Scott Zielinski team?
Yep. So I think the biggest thing is the mentorship on how to build your business based off of how I build it, right? Because I've seen it, I know it works. I know you have to adjust. Every agent's different. You have to adjust for them as to what works for them. Like I have an agent on the team that refuses to use social media, just refuses to do it, right? So I do different things for them than I do other people. So I try to adjust. It's definitely been a learning curve because it got frustrating for a while. It's like, why won't they do it? Now I'm just like, okay, they won't do it, so this is what we're going to do for them to try to make things work. And then just the experience that I have to be able to walk them through making the offers, how to show houses, how to do open houses are a big one. I had an agent very on at the beginning that you asked how I built my business besides social media was open houses. So when I first started, I was doing 1 to 2 open houses every weekend and picking up at least a client just about every single weekend.
That's impressive.
Right? Now, that was pre-COVID, so very different. The internet people weren't so honed in on Zillow.
It was more belly to belly.
Yes,
more belly to belly.
Face-to-face conversations, stuff like that. And they came to me and they were like, I do open houses and I can't get anybody. I said, okay, well, walk me through how you do it. They said, okay. I knew instantly what it was. So I said, this weekend we're going to go. You're going to take the first half. I'm going to watch you do it. I'm going to take the second half and you're going to watch how I do it. And this agent's approach at the beginning was, hey, nice to meet you. Can you sign in right here? That was it. there might have been some info about the house, but it was right away, sign in, kind of right on them. My approach is, hey, Scott Zielinski, nice to meet you. Going to give you some info about the house, let you walk around, let me know what questions you have, right? And then when they're walking around, they get to the living room, kitchen, wherever you're set up.
The deal-making room.
Yeah, you just start.
That's the deal-making room, the kitchen.
And it's just basic conversations. Are you guys from the area? Did you just start looking? And probably 80% of the time, they would see the sign-in sheet and be like, hey, do you need me to sign in? Where when you're like forcing them to do it, they're going to lie. They're not going to put their real name, their real phone numbers. This way, it's more natural. It's more real. So that experience has helped me be able to teach these other agents and observing what they do and trying to figure out what works.
Nothing any book is going to teach them.
No.
Not a single book teaches you. Exactly.
Yeah.
On-the-job training.
The books are great for knowledge, right? But when you're actually there doing it, it makes a difference. And then once I taught that to them, they started picking people up at open house.
So what's the flavor, the culture of your team? What is it? Laid back, or is it high stress, or is it somewhere in between? How do you approach being a team leader?
We're a little in between now. I think when I first started growing the team, I expected everybody to have the same work ethic I did, mentality like go, go, go. Realized that didn't work out for everybody. So again, I adjusted the individual agents. I have one agent on my team right now. This is their full-time job. And we talk probably 2 to 3 times a day, and it's gone home for them. I have another agent that it's definitely not a full-time job for them. So we just do what they need when they need help. And I have a third one that this is going to be his goal to be full-time when he retires in a couple years. So he's I work a little bit more intense with him, but I also back off when I can feel that he's overwhelmed or, he's got kids.
How you felt doing 115 hours a week, but doing both jobs.
And he's got kids and he teaches and trying to work with clients that can only see houses on the weekends. So like I had another client for him, but I backed off on giving it to him until I knew he was, time-wise was good with them until he got them under contract. So I think the biggest thing for me is if you want that full-on, all the time, I don't want to say hand-holding, but teaching and involvement,
mentoring,
I'm there.
Yeah.
If you're more like Mike, where he's like, hey, I want to build it, but I don't need to do it tomorrow, I'm there for that. And then somebody else that's like, I'm going to get what I get, and I'm there for whatever they need. So I'm a little in between. I'm learning to adjust to what my agents need, not what I need.
Last question. Funnels of real estate. You've already talked about social media. You talked about open houses. Zillow?
We do Zillow.
You do Zillow?
We do offer Zillow, and referrals are huge.
Referrals.
So my personal business, I would say 80% of it is referral or repeat business. Right. We do client appreciation events. We do mailers. We do a lot of those things touching our clients.
But you're also president of the Isham Education
Board.
But
I'm still on the board. I'm still on the board.
You ran some pretty huge events, raising substantial amount of money for Isham Education. Yes. Which is, by the way, thank you for doing that, because my kid went through Isham schools and utilized, the reading.
The funds that we provided for programs.
In first grade, he did. So I'm a big believer in that as well. Omar.
Yes.
Funny guy. Mr. Funny.
My wife doesn't.
I don't know when he's... My wife, I think she does. Culture of your team. How do you approach it? Stressful? Not so stressful? In the middle? What is the culture? When I want to be a team member of the Omar Ding Group. I walk into the office, what am I feeling?
So we have it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, the first thing is that all of us, we're thick as thieves. I mean, when I talk to other team leads and I tell them that we'd have this utopia that my entire team, it's like there's days when these people would kill for each other and help each other bury the bodies. We're tight knit.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Okay, let's go with that. In a positive way.
Yes.
If you show Omar's listings and the dirt is dug up,
don't go there.
Just ignore the shed full of lime and the shovels. Don't worry about that. That's just raspberry jam that you see smudged all over. No, but I have such it's so different than what I see on other teams in that they're all so supportive of one another. If somebody needs help or coverage on something, it never even makes it to me. They figure it out. They can't wait to help each other. That's a base.
That's special.
That's a core fundamental in my group. And I'm probably overly selective of who I bring on my team for that reason, because it's so important to me to maintain that same culture that we have. And if I try to describe it, it's not like we're a bunch of clones of one another, but like I would say if there's some commonality is that the majority of the people on my team have had some hardships that they had to fight a lot of times by themselves to overcome. So it's that, and that reminds me a lot of like me, like middle school and high school. And subliminally, it's like we just find one another. So the work ethic, it's like through whatever trials and tribulations they had as individuals in their history, makes it so that their work ethics are second to none, and to work hard doesn't feel like hard work.
Right.
But like outside of that, it's like everyone is exceptionally intelligent. We all have our various like fortes, but that's. I have some team members that were solo agents their entire career and came to the team because of leads, coaching, guidance, and then their careers then flourished.
Sure.
I have other people that I've taken that were came from another team and instantly flourished. Then I have other people that are brand newly licensed. They're slower starts because they don't have like the same social circles, but ultimately still get them started. I mean, they're completely, inexperienced in real estate and sometimes in life. Obviously, the older we are, our social circles are much bigger. One thing I learned a long time ago from a financial planner is that if you're 50, 60 years old and you've got some gray hair in certain industries, people will automatically assume that you're an expert because they see the gray. They're judging you. So being younger can, in certain situations, work against you, but that's okay. You have to lean into your strengths. Some of the younger persons on my team are amazing on social media. They have massive followings. So Scott, you were talking about being a different type of team lead to different team members. One of the things I learned to embrace and not to fight is if somebody's good at something, lean into their strengths. Don't try to reprogram them into something that they're not, because it won't last. They could try to fake it for a little bit, but if that's not them, the disingenuousness of it is going to come through either in dissatisfaction of the team member, poor performance.
Yep.
There could be friction between you and that team member. No, like whatever they're good at, embrace it and let that be their thing. Like that, and because you're not going to have to oil that.
Right.
That's a good point. And the nurturing of that, honestly, it's going to feel effortless. And as a team lead, I think one of our most important roles is to learn what is that person's highest and best use. What component of this are they good at, and just double down on that. And it's different for everybody.
Dude, I think that's incredible advice. I really do. I think you're nailing down. I just love the saying what you just said about less oil, because you're embracing something that they're already running with.
Right.
And not trying to deviate them or make them something that they're not. I love how you're adapting to a father who's teaching, because you get it, you did it, and you had your breakdown moment and you wanted to just go into one direction. Being that type of leader to understand the people that are working with you will only proliferate great success. And the emotional connection that you need to have with whoever works with you is incredibly important, because the longevity of the relationship, it's not transactional.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. It's an ongoing relationship that just fuels the fire to be successful. So, you guys have been great today. Omar, last question.
Yes.
Last question. Funnels of real estate. You talked about social media.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the REO with your relationship with your
Right.
investors and stuff like that. But what other funnels are you finding success with?
So and this stems from a lot of careers that I've had in the past. I worked for Enterprise Car Rental for a couple of years. I was like a club promoter. And in things like that, when you're trying to bring more customers into a club or more clients, in my enterprise rental car days, we were trying to solicit like body shops, mechanics, dealerships to use us instead of a competitor. Well, a car is a car is a car. There was no difference in the product, but why use us versus someone else? Well, it's like, if you have a problem, it's not going to last more than the 5 minutes of us talking about it, if there even is one.
Sure.
So I was always big on in-person things. Like for me, it's like if I can get in front of somebody, I'm going to make friends with that person. I'm not worried about business. And this was any industry that I was in. And then the business just always seemed to magically follow, to the point where if people ask me, how did you land this account, this account, and this account? My response was, I don't know. We just hung out and like they started using me. So then I thought about my response, because that was always my response. And it's, going back to a kid, like trying to connect with people, because I felt so alone for so many years. I think that honed me into this person that is always trying to connect with people. And it's, I'm not a big sports guy, so it's like, living in the greater Philadelphia area, everybody's a diehard sports fan, regardless of what team you're at. If you guys started talking about almost any sport, it's like you're speaking an entirely different language. I'll tune out and just go cross-eyed trying to understand what you guys are talking about. And then that's another little thing that forced me to find other ways to connect with people.
Gotcha.
So going back to the business funnels, like landing my plane here, any new account that I'm trying to go after, it's like, all right, well, everybody likes food. So if I'm trying to land an account, I might just go off and just randomly drop off food and say nothing and just leave and walk right back out. I'll leave my contact information, but it's like, who doesn't like gifts? Now, the next time I go back, I might actually have a conversation, because I came...
So let me back up on that.
Yeah.
So people are clear. So let's say you just did a listing presentation to somebody,
Right.
and they're not far from your house.
Yeah.
And you're on your way home, you're going to drop off cookies at their house and just leave?
Have you ever had Crave cookies?
Yeah, they're damn good.
Or like a cannoli from Termini's. I mean, like being, a local yokel, like I know all like the hidden spots if like I'm really trying to get into good graces with somebody. And I do it with like my team members.
That is really smart. I don't know.
I don't do that. I mean, I drop stuff off, but not like that randomly.
Like, and do you like put a little note on there? And
They know it's from me.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just, and there's zero expectation in return. I could be doing these things and it could lead nowhere, but what does it cost me? If not for nothing, they're not going to forget, and maybe they're just not ready right now. Gotten a lot of referrals that way. The other thing that I'm really big on is events. I'm pretty heavily involved in my local community. I live in Sewell, Washington Township, so my son's a rising soccer star, so I'm very immersed in that community. I sponsor a lot of the kids' sports teams.
Nice.
And also I'm big in the automotive world. Like I love going to car shows. And one of the things I do is like I do interviews when I'm at these things, and I try to put compilation videos. I've gotten listings by accident doing it. I did that because I'm enthusiastic about it. I wasn't looking for business. I wasn't talking about real estate. I wasn't giving out cards. But when I'm doing these interviews with people, a couple of people said, "Hey, what do you do for a living? Like, are you a videographer?" I'm like, "No, I'm actually a realtor." "Oh, my sister needs to." So it's like,
Right.
And again, so when you ask me like, how do these referrals happen? It's like, I don't know. It's just hanging out, talking to people. So I guess that's my answer.
Being plugged into the community network is huge.
We're just hanging out, talking to people.
Just hanging out, talking
Yeah.
to people. Okay.
Don't overcomplicate
Don't overcomplicate
Yeah.
it. Just talking to people.
Yeah.
Answering your phone.
Answering the phone, and yes, I do use a CRM, which I finally got onto that. But that helps me now keep in touch.
When you say finally, why did it take you so long to jump on?
So when I was brand new,
You have hundreds of clients, if not thousands.
in the thousands now.
Yeah.
I just literally had just sheets of copier paper. And then eventually the paper got so chaotic that I had an accordion folder, like one letter for one spot. But then that was like exploding. I'm like, all right, I need a better way to do this. So then eventually I finally went digital and electronic, and I caught up with the times because I let my technology had to now start to supplement where my business was going.
Gotcha.
You asked me 10 years ago, would I be?
None of us.
I never would have thought.
So what's CRM?
I use Lofty.
Lofty.
It's
Okay.
very user-friendly. There's a lot of CRMs out there.
There's a ton.
I could tell you, I probably hate KV Core more than anybody. It's clunky. It's not user-friendly. It's not easy to figure out how to do the most basic things. Lofty for me has been great. And you know what? Other people may feel differently about different CRMs. Honestly, again, figure out which one works good for you. If you don't like one, try a different one and keep changing it until you find one that sticks.
Scott, you've always been a CRM guy.
Yeah,
a
so
long time.
we're actually literally in the middle of converting over to Lofty from KV Core.
How about that?
So I have it's night and day. Yeah,
you know
we talked about it last year when we were in Vegas for EXPCon. It just with having the baby has just taken me way longer to implement.
But you've been a big KV Core guy.
Yeah, but I never liked it. Like I used it because it's what was available, and that's what I learned.
But Lofty is
so much more user friendly. Yeah. I mean, KV Core, if you want to change your website, you have to know how to do code. Lofty, you literally pull up the website and you just drop and drag what you want to do. It's
not that this is a commercial for Lofty, but it's a CRM that you found that fits your personal lifestyle and the way you guys operate.
Yes.
That's the point.
Whether you're tech savvy or not, it seems to be one of the better ones to use.
Good.
And EXP offers it at a pretty big discounted price if you don't want to use KV Core.
Lasting question for both of you. How do you like EXP? Now that you've been around for 3 years doing it?
Yeah.
So I have a couple facets of answer.
And I'm not looking for any glory, just be honest with people.
So ultimately, my overarching thing is, generally speaking, you should be marketing and branding yourself.
Boom.
No matter where your license is held, that's not going to change who I am to my clients. Now that we get that disclaimer out of the way, so I was at Remax for my first 5 years, and now EXP going on my second 5 years. I found it was tremendously easier to build a team. Biggest difference for me. It's a lot more. There's a lot more autonomy at EXP, and that's good for some people, and it's not good for other people. One of the biggest things I learned about myself. So when after was no longer at Remax, EXP is cloud-based. So there's teams have brick and mortar offices, and once I was no longer at a brick and mortar office, I'm like, I thrive on being surrounded by people. When COVID happened, dude, I was depressed.
You're not the only one.
Seeing people.
Trust me.
So then I went out and that's when I went out and opened up a brick and mortar office, because I'm like, I need to be around people again.
And where's your office?
Washington Township.
Okay, good.
We're temporarily closed, but we're reopening soon, because unfortunately my the one who held our broker's license had passed away recently. But we're soon to be open again.
Okay.
That's.
Well, you're still operating in there.
Yeah.
You just can't have traffic coming in.
Correct.
It's a private office now, not open to the public.
I still lease it, but it's
I get
temporarily closed.
Gotcha. Scott?
I think it was the best move. I, just like Omar, only knew Remax. It's night and day on what is offered, and I'm a firm believer, because when we came to EXP, I had been talking to other brokerages, and EXP was actually one of them when you came to us and said, hey, I think we're all going to go to EXP. I was like, all right, good. I don't have to go and tell Chris I'm leaving to go to EXP.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, I was looking at 2 brokerages. EXP was one of my first choices. The amount of access you have to agents that produce more than you. Do I think I've been successful in what I've done? Yes. Do I think compared to the guys I talk to? No, because they are
next level.
Yeah, and you have access to them. They'll answer your phone. I reached out to Kyle Whistle the other day, who you wouldn't think I would ever hear from him at this point, as big as they are. Within 30 minutes, got back to me.
And it's same experience with him.
Dan Beer?
I reached out to Dan once when we first started, and he was right away. Yeah,
that's what I found. I actually saw Kyle down at EXPCon. He's like, "Oh, I haven't seen you. Give me a hug." He's just that kind of personality, which is fantastic.
And that's pretty typical within the company. There's always exceptions, because you're dealing in people.
But far and wide, let's be honest.
But yes,
you could pick up the phone and get any top producer and pick their brain.
Well, give you a prime example, and Omar's a little bit down the road though, but we have Mark, who's a part of the group now, right down the street. I go up against him in listing appointments, but I can tell you this, if I need something, I text him, I call him, and he responds, lets me know. EXP is all about growing, and one thing I saw in the fast forward movement, Mastermind yesterday, was the new concept is where pros go to grow. And it's true, because I've definitely grown, not as much as I would like, because I've had personal things over the past 2 years, but...
You just became a father, too.
Well, that, and with my mother being sick the year before, I still did the same numbers, which was awesome, because I thought I would have gone down both years, so I still have done the same.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and now that that's over, next year, I'm already working on a couple deals that will be probably the biggest I may ever do in my life, possibly. So I'm surrounding myself, same thing with those people within EXP and outside of EXP. Like Omar brought up, just talking to people. The biggest deal, 2 deals that I'm trying to do was, we were in Cape May at Congress Hall with friends. My buddy's like, oh, my buddy's an investor. He's coming down from Avalon. And we literally were on the lawn just drinking. And he's like, so what do you do for a living? I didn't even bring it up. And those guys were all like, you have to tell them what you're doing. I was like, no, we're here. It's a Saturday. We're hanging out. I was like, oh, I do real estate. He's like, oh, I do new construction. You have anything? And I found him something in Avalon. Actually, through Ashley.
Just showing up,
EXP connection.
just connecting. This goes exactly what
Just
you
hanging out talking.
Just hanging out
I'll
talking
tell
to
you,
people.
it's
That's impressive.
that's my business plan.
Yeah, we went on a listing appointment in Avalon. She called me because she knows I know the area. We didn't get the listing. They haven't listed with anybody. I was like, oh, I know of a property. It's not on the market. Are you interested? So we're trying to work it out. But with the XP, that's what it's about. Just who you're around, growing. Everybody will help everybody. I mean, I'm not on Deanna's team, but you can tell I probably annoy her because I go to her all the time and stuff. But but everybody's all about helping. Omar and I, like, honestly, if it wasn't Remax, we probably wouldn't be friends or talk. But like, we reach out to each other every once in a while. I'd be like, hey, what do you think of this? What are you doing with this?
The CRM. You bounced it off each other.
Well, we spent lunch that one day in Vegas for like
Right.
2 hours just talking about Lofty because he was already on it. And I was up in the air about what am I going to do. And he ultimately helped me make that decision to go to Lofty and not to like one of the other ones.
Just don't get bogged down with, okay. Well, guys, I really appreciate you jumping in with me today.
Thanks for
This
having
was
us.
a really cool interview. A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
This was PG.
PG, the PG version. When we go to Vegas, we'll set up the X-rated version.
The R version out on a private link later on.
You'll see the unedited version on my OnlyTans.
Our seductive house, what is that? Seductive showings? Well, thank you very much, guys, for listening in on this episode of ClosePoint Cafe. It's been a lot of fun with Omar and Scott, and I hope you join us on our next episode.